Hi everyone, welcome to Skill Sessions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please do say hello in the chat and let me know where you're joining from. If you are a regular to our events, you will know that I host these from Bristol. So yeah, I'd love to know the locations where everyone's joining us from. I'm just nosy and stuff like that. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. Also, if it's your first time with us, do let me know that in the chat as well. I'd love to say hello to everyone that's joining us on the call. I cannot believe that it's April already. It's nice and sunny here in Bristol, so it feels like spring is sort of slowly on its way. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing as delightful weather as we are in the southwest, but yeah, let me know in the chat and I'll take a look at those in a second. So before I introduce you to today's guest speaker, I want to say welcome and just thank you so much for supporting these events. There are more than 2,000 of you in our Skill Sessions community now. So thank you for supporting our webinars and sharing them with your colleagues and friends. You're helping us make more inclusive workplaces for everyone. And that really is why we run these events. You can always find out what's coming up next on the CareScribe website, and the team are working on a really important topic for May, which I'll come on to in a second. But keep your eyes peeled for those announcements on our socials or on the page, which I think should be being shared in the chat right now. Let's have a look. Obviously, if you're signed up for email updates from us, you'll be the first to know about all of our events. Let's take a look at the chat and see where we've got people joining from. This is one of my favourite parts. Sunny Swindon, sunny Bristol, lovely Edinburgh. Hi, Dora in Edinburgh. Oh gosh, there's so many messages coming in, hard to keep up with. Sunny Kent, this is my first webinar. Welcome, Laura, lovely to have you on board. Solihull, Oxford, Stockport, and there's also lots of sunshine for everyone, which is brilliant. Isn't it a nice treat? I feel like I've only seen grey skies for quite a long time now, so it's an absolute pleasure to see some blue skies outside my window. Right, before we take a dive into today's session, I wanted to quickly let you know about our next Accessibility in Action webinar, which is happening in a couple of weeks' time. So one of our team, Chris, will be showcasing Captioned and TalkType, and he'll be talking you through how those products can support professionals with dyslexia. So helping to improve not just accessibility at work, but productivity as well. So if that sounds useful to you or to your colleagues, do register. It's completely free to attend. Just follow the link that's being added into the chat. And I mentioned about the planning for the Skill Sessions event that we have in May. And I'm excited to announce that we have the remarkable Celia Chartres-Aris joining us. And that webinar is going to be about the global DEI shift and what the impact of the recent reversal of US policies can mean to UK organisations. It's an incredibly topical conversation, all over the news and on my Google feed, and Celia's got a lot to share on it. So registrations for that are open now, and I do recommend getting booked on as soon as you can. Anyway, back to today. So Skill Sessions events are hosted by an organisation called CareScribe. We're an award-winning software company based in Bristol, and we create specialist assistive technology to help people who are neurodivergent or who have disabilities to be more productive and confident in their work or in their studies. You might have seen a little bit about our software if you were in the waiting room before the session. There was also a teaser video for our TalkType product as well that you may have seen. So we have TalkType, which is highly accurate, lightning fast dictation software, which works on all platforms, so Mac, Windows, Chromebook, and on mobile. And we also have Captioned, which is note-taking and captioning software, which helps people capture, comprehend, and distill just the piles of information that gets thrown at them, either at work or in education. So if you would like to find out more about how either of those products can help improve your organisation, or you want to see the product in action for yourself, then just drop a quick message in the chat and one of the team will reach out to you after today's event. If you've been with us before, you know I've got a little bit of housekeeping to do before I introduce our speaker. So tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email, and that will include a recording of today's live webinar, any resources that Donna highlights. I know she's going to share her slides with you all. And there will also be a feedback survey where you can let us know how you found the session. We find that really valuable. We look through every bit of feedback that we get. So please do let us know what you thought of the event. Some of you are already doing this. In fact, lots of you are already doing this, but please do join in the chat. We've been doing these events for over 2 years now, and just that is where the essence of skill sessions like really comes to life. So talk with your peers on the call, share your experiences, and just make the most of the opportunity to talk with people just like you. With that in mind, though, I do understand that sometimes the chat can be a bit distracting for some people. So if you need to, you can turn off the chat previews and you can mute your notifications as well. So do make use of that if that would be beneficial for you. If you have a question for our speaker, which I really hope you will do, please use the Q&A section. I'm going to point at the bottom of your screen. It just means that your questions don't get lost in the chat. And you can also upvote questions as well, so we know which ones to tackle as a priority. As you can probably tell and see, the chat does get quite busy. So I'd encourage you to use that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And then for anyone that's just joined the webinar, yes, the session is being recorded. So you'll be sent an email with a recording and a full transcript generated by Captioned, and that will arrive in your inbox tomorrow. Right, without further delay, let me introduce you to Donna Stevenson as she joins me on screen. And I'll give you a bit of an intro to Donna as she does that. So Donna has a passion for supporting learners with dyslexia. She worked at the British Dyslexia Association for many years with both children and with adults. And she's worked within education and also workplaces to just raise awareness and champion the dyslexia-friendly approach. Her passion in the latter part of her career lies with supporting adults in the workplace through delivering training and as a workplace needs assessor. In 2022, Donna joined the Succeed with Dyslexia team as the head of training and assessment, utilising her years of experience to create a global service. So she's certainly been a busy bee. You've been a busy bee, Donna. And as she continues her work supporting the community as a Succeed with Dyslexia ambassador, she's also part of the Adult Network, Neurodiversity and Dyslexia Coalition, as well as the Shadda Local Dyslexia Association. If that wasn't enough, she's also part of the Neurobots training team, which is why she's with us today. Donna, that's quite a CV, isn't it?
Thank you. I have been busy. When I hear you say that, Claire, I have been busy. But
You
it's lovely
have
to
been.
join you. It's really
Yeah,
lovely.
thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much.
I'm excited about this. And yes, you're quite right. I'm really proud to be part of the Neurobox family. I'm head of training services here, and training is my passion. So yeah, I'm really excited to get chatting with everyone today.
Fabulous, fabulous. Before I leave you on the call, why don't you just tell us a bit about Neurobox and sort of what they do?
Yeah, thank you. So as I say, I'm head of training here. So of course we provide a lot of training at Neurobox. But essentially, we're all about providing adjustments in the workplace. We are a leading provider of that. So obviously training, which is my passion, but assessments, coaching, we support folks on access to work journey. So yes, it's about the neurodivergent community, disabled folks, and those with long-term health conditions as well. So yeah, some of the links we'll share today, Claire, will be directed to our wonderful services. We give a lot back as well, including sessions like this. So I cannot wait.
Lovely. Well, I'll hand it over to you. So
You.
yes, handing it over to you, Donna, and I will be back at the end of your session to take some questions for the
Thank
audience.
you.
Bye.
Right, this is the techie bit, guys, which I always get rather nervous about, but bear with me. Hopefully you can see that. So thank you for making time for me. As Claire says, I'm Donna and I'm head of training here at Neurobox. Please keep in touch with me. As Claire said, I've been around for a long while. I love to hear from the community, whether it's questions or just shout out. So keep in touch. Today is about dyslexia, and it's really a nice opportunity for me to almost go back to my roots in the journey that I've had across our wonderful neurodivergent community. It really is a deep dive. So we're going to have a look at lots of issues today. So let's get started. I wanted to begin really very quickly, just speedy setting the scene, as it says here, to kind of give you a round robin of what's occurring at the moment. Somebody said to me a while ago, Donna, it's the best of times and the worst of times in the neurodivergent community at the moment. And I kind of understood what they meant by that. So let me share more. Interesting times we are in. So maybe this is some of the best of times. Very exciting for 2025. We have a new UK definition of dyslexia. Some of you may have seen this on social media and so on. It's this Delphi group definition. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we were due from the Sir Jim Rose definition, the Rose Review that we've had for many years now. We were kind of due for a refresh. Those of you who are very familiar with dyslexia, yeah, you might think actually this looks kind of similar to the Rose Review definition, and it kind of does. The Delphi is built on that great work from Sir Jim and the team way back when. But yes, I think it's interesting for those of you who come today with a view of, okay, what actually is dyslexia? It talks here, and I've kind of bolded the bits, guys, that I'm just going to focus in on. Processing difficulties, that's part of dyslexia that a lot of us who maybe don't know a lot about this difference aren't aware of. Yes, of course, we've got reading and spelling, literacy here in general. Again, that's probably a part of dyslexia we're more familiar with, as is what we call phonological processing, the sounds that our letters make. That's the building blocks of our language, isn't it? Yes, we associate that a lot with children. That's how they learn to read English. However, if for those of us who are professionals, if in our day jobs we have a lot of acronyms, a lot of industry specific words, thinking here of the medical profession or the legal profession, then yes, some of these issues resurface for our adults, no matter how accomplished they are. Interestingly as well, we've also got these issues, and again, a lot of people don't realize this about dyslexia. Working memory, there's that word processing again, thinking about information, using it, and especially at speed. So we've got this idea in the definition that, if we're working at pace, and we've got an issue around orthographic skills, so spelling, so there's that literacy issue again. So yes, it builds very nicely really on the definition we used for many years in the UK from Sir Jim Rose. That being said, there are some new bits to it. This time around, there's more talk of adults, which is interesting, isn't it? And also a focus on fluency. And maybe it is speaking to us about that speed. And I'm going to pick that up a little bit later on. So this is an interesting development I wanted to share with you guys. Something that's been around for a while, but I wanted to pop it in because I think this is almost the best of times bit, is on LinkedIn. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Come and find me if you want to say hi. For quite some time now, we've been able to tick dyslexic thinking on our profiles to share that, we acknowledge the fact that for those of us who've got dyslexia, we're great at thinking of new ideas, potentially thinking outside the box, creative thinking. Okay, and it's some great work that came on the back of Made by Dyslexia with Sir Richard Branson. So maybe this sits nicely within the best of times. I really liked this when it happened because not only I thought it was a real feel-good moment, I feel it changed the narrative around dyslexia. Because I think for those of us who didn't know a lot about dyslexia and maybe only associated dyslexia with a lot of challenges, I think this was a real light bulb moment for a lot of folks who thought, oh, dyslexic thinking, that's a thing, something to be proud of. And I think it helped that cultural shift around, thinking about dyslexia in a different way. Sadly, while some of this exciting stuff's happening, we've also got the changes that I think we're very aware of. And Claire spoke about one of the speakers in the future who's going to do a deeper dive into the changes that we are aware around the DEI space, of which dyslexia and the other differences sit within, isn't it? And sadly, we are starting to see, after all these years of hard work that a lot of us have been fighting for, this pushback against some of the DEI initiatives that are out there. So we've got, and I won't read it all, but we've got Google stepping back from the aspirational hiring goals this year, Meta and Amazon scaling back their diversity programs, McDonald's announced that they're going to roll back some of their diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. Walmart, again, same pattern, pushing back on some of their commitments. This is an interesting one, though, everyone. Their own shareholders have then pushed back again and said to Walmart, hey, Walmart, does this actually make great business sense to do this? I would argue, and I've spent a lot of my career arguing, that actually it doesn't make great business sense not to have a commitment around being inclusive in these ways. So very interesting times ahead, isn't it? We shall see where this develops. I think our resolve becomes even stronger than ever to raise awareness and have this commitment to inclusion. So again, some of the best of times maybe about that commitment and wanting to change our systems for the better. Some of you may have seen recently Jamie Oliver in Parliament with lots of campaigners. Here they are campaigning on behalf of our children with dyslexia, talking about wanting to make our education system more inclusive. So again, lots of great work out there, lots of exciting work. Again, maybe this sits within the worst of times stuff. Again, parallel to some of that exciting stuff, we've got this happening. And some of you may have seen this across the media, where we've got a journalist saying dyslexia doesn't exist. It's a made up affliction. I mean, my goodness, what a word. That's become a multi-million-pound industry around children who haven't been taught to read. It was picked up across the media. And I know from my own networks, experts in the field being asked to go on to LBC radio and argue about why dyslexia is real. So again, for somebody like me who's been around for quite a few decades now, I've heard these conversations before, sadly, but I think we have to be aware of the impact it has on individuals in our lives, you know, in our families and friends, but also the colleagues that we work with. So with that in mind, if it's okay with you guys, during my time with you this afternoon, I'm going to do a bit of a shout out with some questions, if it's okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. Pop your thoughts in the chat. I've got my glasses ready to read it. My question then is, how might some of that recent press coverage that dyslexia doesn't exist make our colleagues who live with that difference feel at the moment? Okay, so have a ponder. How does this impact those of us who live with this difference feel about dyslexia when we're reading and we're seeing in the Metro newspaper, hearing on the radio and so on, dyslexia doesn't exist? Let's see if we've got anything in the chat already. I'll open up the chat box. Thank you guys if you're sharing thoughts. Let me open up. Angry, thank you. Demoralized, what a word, yeah. Disappointed, fake, upset, angry. Yeah, I feel unheard. Less likely to ask for an adjustment, yeah. Amazed that in this day and age in the UK there's such an attitude. Somebody else also disgusted, I don't feel heard. I cringed when I read it. I think that person said they were in tears, frustrated, gaslit, yeah, angry, worried that people believe this nonsense, frustrated, shut down. Thank you guys, keep them coming, I will read them. But yeah, it's not a good place to be. And I'm wondering those of you who've joined today because you're wanting to get it right for colleagues who live with this neurodifference. Did you reach out to folks in your team when this had hit the media to just check in and say, hey, you know, are you okay? I think it makes a difference. I know from my own networks and my own experiences, a lot of people felt like you guys are saying, upset, frustrated, angry, demoralized. So we come to these conversations then with a renewed passion because we've got to get it right. It's a really important thing for us to figure out how we get it right. And what I'm going to share with you today, guys, is hopefully some ideas on how we do get it right. And also make sure that we approach this discussion in a really inclusive, supportive way so that folks don't feel invisible, unheard, disrespected, angry, and so on. So my next part then is a bit of a fact checking around dyslexia. Okay, now again, a bit of a challenge for you. One of these myths is not a myth. Okay, so that's your challenge as I go through them. One of them I popped in here to see if you spot it. It doesn't belong because it's actually true. But there's lots of myths around dyslexia. And this was kind of, I really enjoyed actually putting this slide together because this is kind of things I've heard. And I'd love to hear anything else again in the chat if you think, yeah, this is a myth I hear. But we've got this idea that folks with dyslexia have got superpowers. Interesting, isn't it? We kind of have fallen out of love with that phrase, superpowers. As I say, I've been around for a long while. I remember when it was kind of came around in our consciousness. I can't even remember when it was now. probably over 5 years ago, people started to say, oh, superpowers about neurodiversity and dyslexia. And at the time, we got very excited about it. But I think quite quickly, that phrase fell really foul in terms of it didn't feel like a good fit for lots of reasons. And I spoke to somebody at the time who'd said to me, Donna, the only thing that I've got as a dyslexic person in common with a superhero is that we both wear masks. And I thought, wow, what a great idea. And a very profound one, actually, and quite sad, of course. So yeah, this idea that if you've got dyslexia, you're bound to have superpowers. Now, look, if that's how you see yourself and you think, yeah, I'm actually really good at this and that is a superpower, brilliant. You know, you can speak about yourselves in whatever way that you're most comfortable with, and we want to respect that. But at the same time, I think we've got to go easy about this idea that if you've got dyslexia, you've automatically got these, in quotes, superpowers. And when I'm out and about delivering training, and I'm going to share it again with you guys today, actually, and we look at some of the gifts and talents potentially associated with dyslexia, it's a lovely way to think about dyslexia, and it's really important we do. But at the same time, we don't want to disenfranchise folks who say, well, actually, I'm not good at any of those things. And I've had people say to me, does that mean I'm a bad dyslexic? So it's the balance, isn't it? It's being positive, but it's proceeding in a more gentle, respective way, I think. This is something else I hear for adults and children. Dyslexic folks just need to work that bit harder to overcome their challenges. So it's this idea again, whether we realize it or not, that a myth like this one implies that, yeah, if you've got dyslexia, you're not working so hard. Totally wrong. And it's working in different ways, isn't it? And for those of you who've come here today wanting lots of ideas, it's that different ways that we want to try and figure out. Another one, the lived experience of dyslexia is always the same. Not quite right, is it? Again, we're all individuals. And again, it comes to that famous quote, if you've met one person with dyslexia, you've met one person with dyslexia. We've got here, dyslexia does not co-occur with other neurodivergent differences. Everyone with dyslexia has literacy issues. And although we've seen literacy mentioned in the definition, we can't tether literacy too closely always with dyslexia, because for a lot of folks, either they've got their own strategies to support their dyslexia around literacy, and maybe it's not so much of an issue anymore, or maybe they've never actually had literacy issues in the beginning. It's not been present. That's not how their dyslexia manifests. So again, it's really important we're aware of that. We've got here as well, there's only a small group of females who live with dyslexia. Increasingly, as we're getting better and more understanding of intersectionality and who we are as individuals, we are getting better at assessing all of us around our neurodiversity, including our cis female population as well. This is an interesting one, and I hear it a lot about all the neurodifferences. We're all a little bit dyslexic. No, we are not. So again, this idea that, oh, we're all a little bit dyslexic, aren't we? No, and there's no evidence to suggest that. And I think, again, by perpetuating that myth, we're actually gaslighting folks who do live with that difference. We are disrespecting. We are people feel minimized, because what we're saying is that we all have dyslexia. That's not true. Again, literacy, here's another myth. If your literacy issues have kind of gone away around your dyslexia, then your dyslexia has kind of gone away now. And maybe in work, we don't need to support you in any ways. Again, wrong. And a really interesting one, this last bullet point, coloured overlays, in quotes, can cure dyslexia. Again, you know, we've associated visual disturbance, and I'll pick up on that in a few slides' time, to dyslexia. Yes, for sure, it can be part of folks' lived experience with dyslexia, but equally the other neurodifferences as well. Yes, overlays can help, and again, I'm going to talk about that, but we've tethered it really closely with dyslexia. And over the years, when I've gone into organisations, people have said to me, oh, Donna, we're dyslexia friendly here. We've got overlays, we've got cream coloured paper. It's a great place to start the journey, but it's not journey's beginning and end at the same time. Okay, so yeah, it's good to have overlays, but they're not going to help folks dyslexia to be cured. A lot of people saying, I don't want my dyslexia to be cured anyway. Thank you very much. I like having dyslexia. It's just about managing areas of challenge maybe for me. So we've got those conversations coming through. But yeah, it's not going to be the only adjustment that we put into place. So folks, the challenge I'd asked you is, one of these doesn't fit. It is not a myth, it's true. So let me see if anybody's popped anything in the chat to keep up to date. Let's have a look. We've got some great comments. We've got people talking about identification. That one, thank you for flagging this about people who work a bit harder, just need to, you know, that helps them with their dyslexia. Yeah, that's a massive myth, isn't it? And thank you for sharing that. Right, we've got somebody who spotted it. Dyslexia does not co-occur. Thank you, that person. That's the false one here. That is not a myth. So where is it? There it is. It says dyslexia does not co-occur with other neurodivergent differences. And of course, it does co-occur. It can be a standalone neurodifference that some of us live with. And for some of us, it can be part of our neurodivergent profile. So we can live with dyslexia, ADHD, autism, whatever. So that one is fake. It is not a myth. It is true that dyslexia does co-occur. So thank you, guys. We go on. So next slide. There we go. Statistics. I always really like talking about dyslexia, not just because it's kind of part of my journey as a professional, but actually because it's a difference that so many of us live with in our communities across our society. It may surprise some of you to see these statistics then. We guesstimate that it's about 1 in 10 who live with dyslexia. Increasingly though, I think we're starting to feel that that guesstimate is also rather conservative. And again, lots of interesting statistics as we play around with the numbers. 6.3 million people live with dyslexia here in the UK. These are interesting guesstimates. I'm hearing a lot these days that the powers that be, the experts, are starting to say that maybe it's 1 in 6 of us who live with dyslexia. So we shall see. But it's certainly an issue that I know as over the years that I've been working in the community, so many people talk to me about. We've also got this word disability here, which may surprise some of you as well. It is the highest incidence disability. Don't forget the neurodivergent differences are identified under our Equality Act here in the UK as disabilities. So for that reason, because of the high incidence of dyslexia, dyslexia is the highest incidence disability therefore. And this is why it's great to have the conversations around this difference, because it's one that impacts a lot of us across our communities. It's also great to think about dyslexia in these ways. So yes, it's not necessarily the superpower conversation, but I think we have to pay respect to the fact that a lot of us who live with this difference, we do associate some of the things that we're really great at with the fact that we have dyslexia. Some of these ideas have come from the lived experience. Lots of people, including our children, saying, hey, I'm really good at this. I think it's because of my dyslexia. And some of it is increasingly because we understand how the brain works through neuroscience as well. So we've got issues like folks talking about being determined, being good with people, having confidence, being empathetic, a good communicator. And a lot of those messages come from the lived experience of our dyslexic community. And then we've got these great strengths about 3D thinking, problem solving, and it's often what we call atypical problem solving, thinking outside the box, being creative. Yes, you know, creative in terms of the arts for sure. Got a lot of dyslexic folks who are in the arts and really flourishing. But we also know that you can be creative in business, in science, in industry. Got lots of entrepreneurs who live with dyslexia, for example. So there's that kind of creativity as well. I think it was Albert Einstein who said creativity is a state of mind. And as we think about AI and AI replacing human beings, you know, scary times ahead, we know that AI cannot compete with some of these areas of strength that we know dyslexic folks can potentially live with. AI aggregates, doesn't it? Neurodiversity innovates. And so, yes, this is a really exciting list. This is why, in part, lots of organisations, I'm thinking of our security service, GCHQ, for example, actively recruiting folks with dyslexia because they know they potentially bring with them some of these great talents. Here's what Nikesh says. And today, guys, I've threaded through some of the lived experience. I'm passionate about this. So I wanted to share some voices. These are real quotes from real people. Nikesh says, I'm such a great people person, always have been, even as a child. It's only into adulthood that I started to equate the fact I have dyslexia with the fact that I'm good with people. I'm often the one that our clients ask to speak with. I'm a great listener. I have good empathy skills, so I feel I really connect with folks. So this is a really great quote from Nikesh. And again, when I'm delivering training, I often hear people like Nikesh sharing in this way. It's a newer part, I think, of our understanding around dyslexia and indeed the other neurodifferences. And you know, it makes my heart sing because I love it when people like Nikesh speak in this way. He's already started to think, okay, because of my dyslexia, I'm actually really good at these things. In the world of work, this is a good place we want to be at with a colleague like Nikesh, isn't it? We want Nikesh to say, hey, I'm great at this stuff. Yes, maybe I've got areas of challenge over here. Work with me to support my area of challenge, and then I'm really going to flourish. Because as Nikesh says, he's the person that their clients ask for because he's good with clients, he's good with people. And so this is what we want to try and get that balance, isn't it? Really playing to colleagues like Nikesh's strengths. So it is that balance, everyone. And here we see potentially, and it's not an exhaustive list, some of the areas of challenge. We're picking up what we might have seen from that Delphi definition. So yes, we've got literacy issues here. Of course we do. For a lot of folks, this is the day-to-day impact of their dyslexia, reading, writing, and spelling issues. But as I say, let's go a little bit easy around it because we can't tether dyslexia just to literacy. It's bigger than that, okay? And that's why a list like this is really useful, I think. We've also got number here. And I think this really surprises folks to think that number can be in the mix. It's in part connected to the fact that often dyslexic folks will talk about having challenges around organizational skills. So that's, yeah, the practical things we do, right time, right place, being on a Zoom call at the right time, having, you know, the notes with you and what have you, through to maybe organizing our thoughts, the ideas and so on. Like me now, I'm giving a presentation. I'm kind of organizing what I'm going to say to you. That's a different type of organizing, isn't it? We've then got memory, working memory, short-term memory. This is huge when we know that folks struggle in these ways because so much of what we do in our lives and in our professional lives depends on us retaining information. And then once we've retained it, processing it, thinking about it, actioning it, using it, whatever that looks like for us. And often, again, a lot of the work we do here at NoraBox is to figure out what we can provide, what information, what technology and so on can help folks to navigate through that. Because it's a real tricky, almost double whammy, as I call it. Remembering information and then being able to connect it and use it in whatever way we need to. Concentration is here, which may surprise some of you. This is not necessarily just the monopoly of, say, our ADHD community, for example, who talk about maybe struggling to stay focused and concentrated. Dyslexic folks can struggle in that way as well. Task completion. Again, we've got lots of dyslexic folks talking about lots of spinning plates, feeling overwhelmed, don't know where to kind of begin to finish things off in that way. So it's that juggling. And one that I talk a lot about because I think sometimes it gets forgotten about in terms of dyslexia is what we call automaticity. It's certain skills for those of us who live with this difference can be really tricky to become automated, so almost second nature. So let's use driving as an example. For those of us who drive, driving is all an automatic skill that we've acquired over the years. So we don't really have to think about driving, do we, when we get behind the wheel? What we see, therefore, for somebody who may struggle in that way is they're still actively thinking, like, how do I drive, or how do I put together this document, or whatever the task happens to be. So it's that lack or struggle around making something automatic as well. And therefore, we have a lot of folks with dyslexia talking about, I'm going to need a little bit more extra time. I said to you earlier on, it was in one of our myths, wasn't it, about coloured overlays in quotes curing dyslexia. Yes, often when we think about dyslexia, we automatically think about visual disturbance. Yes, for sure. For about 40 to 50% of those with dyslexia, they will have print moving about, fuzzy print. These are some examples of what that can look like. The trigger for that, for those of us who are that way inclined, is a white background, often a black font. So that's where one of the first adjustments, accommodations, good practices that we might start to put into place is overlays. No, it's not going to make somebody's dyslexia go away. So as we heard in the myths, curing it, no, that doesn't happen. But it can certainly assist in helping somebody to decode the written word a lot easier. Whether we've got overlays, as we see here in these pictures, and these have kind of come back around since COVID, interestingly enough, people wanting the plastic again, or we're using virtual, or we're changing information as a matter of standard. What we've got here, I do suggest that you have a look at it, because on the back of a quick session like this, you know, these are big issues. We can just kind of give you some ideas, and then please do go and have a look yourselves. The British Dyslexia Association have done all the heavy lifting for us around this issue. They have what they call their style guide about font styles, color combinations, how we set out the written word, including hashtags, actually, for those of us who are quite active on media. Have a look, it's free. So it's on the BDA's website, and it's a really great resource. This is often one of the first places that we go to when we think about, right, how do we get it right for dyslexia? And that being said, yes, we're talking about dyslexia today, but actually this could easily be called neuro-inclusive communication. So it's kind of friendly for all the neurodivergent differences as well. Okay, so again, a quick question out to you. Have you guys in this session today considered changing your font and color background for all your team and your organization? Is this something you've been pondering? Yes or no, maybe? Love to hear from you. I'll move on and then I'll check the chat. Here's what Robert says, his lived experience, when we're thinking about getting it right for people. He says, if someone were to ask me the key to getting the best out of me, I would say, listen to me. I've lost track of the times over the years. I've had managers tell me about who I am rather than ask me. It's so arrogant and patronizing. Sure, there's a dialogue that needs to happen, and I'm happy to listen, but please don't pigeonhole me before you've gotten to know me just because I'm neurodivergent. And I often get asked, Donna, what's your ultimate top tip? And I always say, listen, we need to listen to folks. And Robert said that so eloquently about listen to me. Don't presume that you know me better than I know myself. So with that in mind, let me open up the chat. Oops, where is it? There's the chat. Open up. Let's see if we've got anybody saying, so somebody says, yes, you've changed your font color, not yet, maybe. Not color. Oh, interestingly, an organization won't change. So we've got somebody saying maybe that there's a block there. And I know sometimes it can happen because of procedures and protocols. Somebody saying, I never thought of it actually, as I find it annoying, but it's a small inconvenience to me, which could help lots of people. Yeah, it's about finding a balance, I think, of what's a good fit. We're not going to please everyone all of the time. And that's why I think now with technology, we can make things a little bit more bespoke. So we're not all having to have a look at it. We've got somebody else showing all our materials must be an area with a cream background, but it must also be provided in a format that allows the student to change to something they prefer. Love it. Thank you, guys. Really insightful. So we go on from Robert's brilliant quote. Next slide. Where are we? So what does a dyslexia-friendly organisation look like? I really pondered this, what I wanted to share with you today, because we're going at speed here. It's a big subject to cram into a small space. And I thought, you know what? I want to talk about belonging. It is, honestly, guys, I kid you not, this is one of my passions. So I think as a baseline, what a dyslexia-friendly organisation needs to be a place where we feel that we belong. Bear with me while I explain more. When we're thinking about belonging in this context, I think these ideas hit the nail on the head. It's that your uniqueness is accepted. You are treasured by your organization. How wonderful is that? Somebody said to me a while ago, Donna, it's about feeling that you matter. And I love that word as well. You matter to us. You're comfortable to share of yourself. You feel accepted and you're not afraid. And I'd love to be able to say that in 2025, the fear factor's gone out of dyslexia and the other neuro differences, but it hasn't. And again, I kid you not, probably not a week goes by that someone doesn't reach out telling me they're too scared to share at work who they truly are. So with that in mind, I think belonging needs to be our North Star when we're thinking about getting it right for dyslexia. Because it's such a big idea, I think these 5 pillars really help us to structure what it could mean to us. And you'll have these slides to have a look at. But these 5 pillars of belonging give us a bit of a roadmap, I think. We've got welcomed. What are we doing to welcome in folks? This is part of belonging. Known. What are we doing so that you are known to us? We want to get to know you. Included. So this is our very much at the heart, inclusion. What are we doing to bring down those barriers? Supporting you. What are we doing to make sure you're supported? And that connection as well. Have we got networks, that human to human connection, which we can still do even when we're virtual? So they, I think, really help us to take something that's a wonderful idea and start to try and make it practical in terms of what it looks like. And this quote has got to be one of my favorite quotes of all time, everyone. A few years ago, when I started to look at belonging, this cropped up in one of my Google searches, and I kid you not, it blew me away. The question is the opposite of belonging fitting in? And this is what it says. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And that's from Brene Brown, the very wise Brene. Isn't that brilliant? Because what that speaks to us of is people who are neurodivergent, fitting in at any cost. And this is where we start to talk about masking and hiding. So a shout out, guys, to you. Do you agree that the fitting in is the opposite of belonging? So have a think. I'll go on and then I'll check the chat. But it's a really interesting question. On the back of that, then, if belonging is our North Star, we've got to think about what else is in the mix. And indeed, some of you will have come here today. Just give me lots of top tips, and hopefully I'm delivering for you now. Because what does a dyslexia-friendly organisation look like? This is kind of a brain dump for me. Okay, right, what does it look like? The culture's got to be right. We've got to go right at the top. What do our policies say? Are they neuro-inclusive? I'm head of training here at Norbox. Of course, I'm passionate about training because I know the difference. So here we've got awareness and understanding in our teams. To me, that comes from training, listening to lived experiences. Have we got respect and representation, allies, advocates, recognition, and of the value of difference, agility in different ways of working, a community across our organization through networks and so on. Encouraging self-advocacy, which is huge, I think. Being able to feel confident to be able to share of yourself. What's our employee journey like here? Recruitment, onboarding and beyond. Lots of practical strategies, top tips that we can do. These micro changes. And then, yes, if somebody is self-advocating, are we listening? Because in only for that to work, an organization's got to listen. And not just listening, we've got to be active as well. We've got to respond, haven't we? It's not just about people sharing and then that's the end of that journey. People share, we listen, and then what we hope is that we take action from that. Let's have a look in the chat then about fitting in. Fitting in is also masking your true self. Yes, I couldn't agree more. We've got, I don't agree that fitting in is the same as belonging. Fitting in means that you're changing your ways. Belonging means you're being accepted as you are. Interesting. Thank you for that. That's really insightful. Thank you, guys. Keep those thoughts coming. I'll have a look again in a minute. So we go on, next slide. So what can we start to do to get it right? Here's what Josie says. She says, after many years in the world of work, the firms I've felt most at home with and really flourished are those who've really tried to value those of us with dyslexia. It's good for me, of course, but also a better way to work for everyone. And that's kind of our no-brainer part of this, isn't it, guys? In terms of, as Josie says, yes, it's good for Josie, she has dyslexia, but actually it's a better way to work for us all. And what I share here, and I've got one eye on the time, so I won't read every single bullet point out, but you've got these slides. We've got this idea now increasingly that we hear about toolkits, lots of different things coming together of what we can make sure that we support somebody like Josie to really accentuate their areas of strength and then support the areas of challenge. So we've got here technology, speech and text software, AI is coming through now with ChatGPT and so on. There's lots of great stuff in Microsoft. Then we've got things that are as cheap as chips and really, very basic, I guess, but still really useful. Fidget toys, wait if you sit and listen for a long time. Post-it notes, we've got some things that, as I say, are quite basic. For a lot of folks, apps are really useful for them, or a dictaphone, being able to record, read a pen, and so on. So lots in the mix that all come together for this toolkit approach. Okay, I'm going to skim this because I've got one eye on the time. Sometimes when we aren't sure what will suit a colleague like Josie, we've tried our toolkit, lots of ideas. We can't seem to find the way forward. I think a workplace needs assessment can really help because it's a deep dive into what somebody like Josie may need in order to get the best out of her in the world of work. So again, I leave that idea with you. It is about trying lots of these ideas to work with Josie in a way that she likes to work and is the best way for her. But also sometimes we have to be really pragmatic and say, yeah, we actually can't seem to find a way forward, Josie, but no problem. Let's have a look at a workplace needs assessment. So again, I share that with you because I get asked a lot, Donna, what happens if we can't figure it out for a colleague like Josie? There's another way forward where we work with an expert. They will do a deep dive into Josie's day job, what she's great at, what she struggles with, and come up with lots of practical, pragmatic ideas, which will really help us get the best out of her. And then last, but certainly not least, again, I won't read all these out because I've got one eye on the time. I want to hand it back over to Claire. But I want to leave you with these top 10 dyslexia-friendly tips, and I'm going to cherry pick some of the great ones. I really like number one, and we've not really mentioned this today yet, self-validation. So this is slightly different to self-advocacy, where yes, I'm sharing, but self-validation is a feeling that actually what I'm saying, it matters. My thoughts and ideas, experiences are valid. I should be accepted, and I'm worthy of respect as well. So that's a really important part, I think, of getting it right. Community is as well, making those links across through ERGs, networks, whatever we call them in our organization, people-to-people contact, role models, allies, and so on. I think also part of the picture's got to be getting educated, for ourselves, about ourselves, but also for those of us who don't have dyslexia, what this looks like, what it means to us. So doing our research as well. You can't be what you can't see is number 7. Something we talk about a lot these days. It is allies and role models. We want people to feel secure in that way. And if some of our colleagues are in a great place, those of us who feel comfortable enough to do this, I like number 8 because it's about playing it forward, supporting colleagues on that journey. So you've kind of been on that journey yourself. Now you're playing it forward for others. We're celebrating our awareness times and this self-advocacy. If you don't ask, you don't get. Really pragmatic approach, knowing your rights, knowing what, you're entitled to, you're able to self-advocate in those ways. I'm going to scoot forward, guys, because what I've popped in these slides, and I know the team will share with you some really useful links and resources, including these slides. But now I'm going to scoot back and I'm going to end on this brilliant quote from Mohammed. He says, now I'm in my 50s. I finally feel confident to stand up for those of us who've got dyslexia. Since I've spoken out and become an ally, there have been so many colleagues who've approached me to thank me, want to stand with me. We now have a bit of an army going on, and it's fantastic. Me speaking up has caused ripples of hope. How wonderful is that? So on that very hopeful message, I will hand back to Claire and we'll see if you've got any questions. Claire, I've gone over and I do apologise. I knew this was going to happen. Once I start talking, I can't stop.
Not at all. What a powerful and jam-packed presentation, Donna. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also just thank you to everyone on the call. The chat has just had so many interactions in it, which is just wonderful to see. I said it at the start, but that's really the power of these events. So yeah, how wonderful. Thank you. We have had some questions come in. We did have one come in advance, so I'll start with that one.
Yes, please do.
Donna. So John has asked, if proper grammar and syntax are necessary for communication from someone in their team to internal and external clients, how does a manager support this? They go on to describe that at present, there is quite a protracted back and forth of drafts and corrections between manager and staff member before something is good enough to be sent out, which feels quite an inefficient and frustrating place to be in. So do you have any advice for John?
Yes, I do. It's a great question, John. I think technology is your friend here. It sounds like you're really doing it the old-fashioned ways, if I can say, as you're saying, backwards and forwards with drafts. And I think that's not only time-consuming, but very demoralising, I think, for the person who's on the other end of getting their work marked almost, and no matter how maybe, supportive that you're doing it, and also very time-consuming for both parties. So I think, I know, for example, and there's lots of things out there, but Grammarly is very good at helping folks to navigate through that. So there's technology out there now that can check and flag to the individual, so we're not having to laboriously send documentation through. I also want to flag whatever technology you decide to use, speech to text software, Grammarly, what have you. And I think Copilot can help with this as well, if it's maybe drafting emails, for example, Microsoft Copilot. Make sure the person that's going to be using it knows how to use it. It sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But I speak to so many folks who say, work has bought me Grammarly, for example. I actually don't know how to use it. Don't tell anyone. I'm kind of not using it. So we don't want to be in that place. So we want to make sure folks really know how to use the things that we are sharing with them. I also suggest as well, beyond the tech, is some maybe coaching to help the person almost know where they may need assistance and may not. So I think strategy coaching can help with that. I've certainly worked with people over the years who's part of the area of challenges, sending documents out, drafting them and whatnot. So I think that can help as well. But certainly a quick fix, if you like, is technology with something like Grammarly.
Thank you, Donna. We've had another question come in from Laura, who says, what advice would you give to try and educate other team members to know how they can support their colleagues who may have dyslexia? And you started to sort of give some insight there, so I wondered if you can add a bit more colour to that.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. And that is another great question. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to start by saying training, because that's, of course, my passion. Because I know the difference training can make, sessions like this, for example. So I think training. I also think if folks are comfortable enough to do so, not everybody is there yet. I think listening to other colleagues' lived experiences can really make a difference as well, because those colleagues speak your language, they are in your organisation, they understand what it means to be neurodifferent in your organisation. I understand that not everybody's there yet, and sometimes we have to make sure the culture is safe for people to share in that way. But I think maybe if you think, well, nobody wants to share in that way, I think bringing in an external guest speaker, and there's lots of great folks out there now who are happy to come in and share. We've got our own here, Elizabeth Tetch, who's brilliant. She goes out and about raising awareness, talking about her own lived experience and raising awareness. Slightly different to a training, if you like, because it's almost a really insightful, inspiring talk, which then maybe trigger something more, in quotes, formal through training. But I think it's about addressing these issues at a kind of very human level, listening to experts, whatever that looks like for you. I also think having information on your intranet, on your systems around these differences is good, because people can go and have a look at their leisure and have a ponder. A lot of people will be neurodifferent themselves, maybe don't want to share yet. So it's those ideas as well. Having, signposting and information on your systems as well, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, one of the reasons that we host skill sessions is to educate people. So for the person that asked that question, if you go on the CareScribe website or search for CareScribe's YouTube, we have a history, a library of all sorts of different skill sessions events which cover various topics. So you mentioned Elizabeth Tetchy there, Donna. Elizabeth's done a skill sessions event with us before. So yes, 100% agree with training and education. I'm conscious of time, Donna. We've had a few questions come in. So what I'm going to suggest is that we take those away and we answer those in the follow-up email, which will go out tomorrow, which will include the recording and the slides, of course. So there'll be a nice little resource bank for people. But before we close the webinar today, if there was one takeaway that you had to leave people on this session with, what would that be?
It's tough because it's hard. You've heard me say that I get asked a lot this question, and I always say listen. But I'm going to cheat, guys, because I've already said that one. So that's my freebie. Listen. So I'm going to say another one. I think it's get educated. I can see in the chat and lovely comments. Thank you, everyone. A lot of people said, oh, I've got ideas to take away. It's about getting educated, whatever that looks like, listening to folks, reaching out, the sessions that Claire's talked about. It's about getting educated. I think that makes the difference. Awareness changes the world, I think.
What a quote to end on. Awareness changes the world. Donna Stevenson, Neurobox. Wonderful. You also mentioned in one of your answers about sort of speech to text software, which sort of brings me back to what I mentioned at the start. So for anyone on this call, CareScribe has 2 products, Captioned and TalkType, that can support people and teams with dyslexia. We've got a webinar in 2 weeks' time, which you can register for, which will talk you through the products, show you the products in action, and help you understand how your colleagues and teams with dyslexia can be supported through that assistive technology. That link will either be dropped in the chat now or it'll be in the email tomorrow. So do just keep your eyes peeled. And Donna, thank you so much for your time. Like, honestly, the chat, the thank yous and the comments coming in from the chat have just been absolutely unbelievable. So a lot of value that you've shared today. Thank you so much. Yeah, just wonderful, wonderful feedback. Anushka, do you offer institution-wide software? Yes, we do. A member of the team will reach out to you and we can talk to you about that as well. We do have enterprise licensing available for both Captioned and for TalkType, and it's also available through Access to Work as well. Right, just before we wrap up, we've got 2 minutes left. If you enjoyed today's webinar, please help us spread the word. Please do share skill sessions with your LinkedIn network or on your intranet or in your emails at work. That would be really valuable. Like I said, there's over 2,000 of you in this community now, and every bit of word of mouth helps. I've talked to you about the webinar that we have around our products, but we also have the next skill session event in May. Donna, you talked about this during the opening of your presentation around that DEI shift that we're seeing. We have a speaker joining us to talk about what UK businesses need to know and, importantly, why it matters. We're also going to post a link to the feedback survey that I mentioned at the start of this call in this chat. Please do let us know what you thought of this session. And just, yeah, a final thank you again to Donna for joining us and for sharing all of that valuable information today. And also, thank you to everyone on this call. It's so wonderful just seeing all of that conversation happening in real time and just like seeing the value of this community we've built together. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you at the next skill sessions in May.